One last note here for you,
Sure.
Leonarda. You had a disagreement. You said that with the show, I think the way you handle women is neglecting your duties as men.
Correct.
To lead and protect women even when they stray. Do you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're not doing it today, so I can't really...
it's just other days?
I can't go off of this today. Just a few things that I've seen. I think that you have a tendency to kind of shame some of these women.
Can you give me an example?
No, because I don't have anything. I'm just speaking out of my ass right now. Just based on some clips that I've seen, right?
Okay,
and
sure.
I've seen with you and some of these red pill guys, they'll bring on these girls with
Am
the
I red pill?
OnlyFans. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't like that. I think there's a lot of this happening on social media where we're trying to. I get it. We have to make money. It's interesting. It's exciting to do this. But I think that this happens a lot. I see it online where men will shame women, and I guess if they're going to be like resistant or whatever. But I don't think that that's the way, because she was asking like, how do we stop this? And I don't think that is the way, because it just confirms their already existing bias that men want to abuse them, right? And so with a lot of this stuff, a lot of it I think should really be discussed in a different way, where you kind of like show them, hey, this is actually not to your benefit, this isn't good for you, and actually try to bring them out of that mentality. You're not going to always win, but I don't think that the kind of like exposés that happen are the best way to do it. That's my opinion.
Well, I would need a specific example of.
I know. I wish I'd done my work. But
I think
I kind of
think
agree.
I think I know what you guys are saying, and I have friends, female friends, who feel this way because my husband's on the show frequently, and some of the stuff I say will kind of trigger them. And I think everyone's instinct is to protect women, and like what you said in the pre-show notes was, even when they've gone astray, we should still protect them.
I didn't quite say we should protect them. I just don't necessarily know that kind of, stripping them naked and issuing lashes is the way to do it, metaphorically.
This is my opinion on it, which
might work.
My opinion on it is
maybe.
that right now we don't have a problem of too much woman shaming in general. Now you could look at some.
Have you seen my Twitter feed?
You go in?
I go in on everyone.
You go in.
But I think that we should. I think that in general we should. So like how I ended up into previous bad relationships that, well, I can't even say they were bad, because like my first 2 children I had with my high school boyfriend I was with almost 6 years. I knew him my whole life. Great guy. He went through some personal shit. There was no cheating. There was no blowouts. There was no like toxicity. He just went through some really intense personal stuff, left. Okay. I'm alone with 2 kids. I'm devastated. I couldn't predict how I ended up here. I never thought that would be me. I intended to be with one guy and stay with one guy forever. It didn't work out. Put me in a vulnerable position where guy number 2 comes along. I meet him. He sounds great. He sounds perfect. Too perfect, in fact. Marry him, have a baby with him like I'm supposed to as his wife, and he turns out to actually have some very serious issues I didn't know about, that he didn't tell me about. So I understand what you're saying, where like women can be vulnerable and there can be bad guys. That's true. However, when that one left and I'm alone now with 3 kids and 2 ex-husbands, and I knew everyone forever for the rest of my life is just going to say, oh, she has 3 kids with 2 guys, and they're going to assume you're
a high-value woman,
that I was like promiscuous, or that I was sleeping around with randos, which I never ever did. And I'm sitting there at 26 trying to figure out, what the fuck do I do now, right? And what I had to do, I could blame the guys. I could look at them and all the things they did wrong to me. But instead I went, wait a minute. I'm the common denominator here. There's something about me. Either I'm attracting this type of guy, or I'm attracting certain behavior. Something. I'm the common denominator, because they were total opposites. So I had to take a hard look at myself, and this is the only way I will say that I think I could be an example to women out there. In every other way, I'm not your life coach. I'm not your mom. I'm not the lady with all the wisdom. But in this one way, I think I can be an example, which is that I took a super hard look at myself at 26, which is hard to do. We don't like to do that as women. Be introspective and look at where all our flaws are and where our weaknesses are. And I went, okay, I see a pattern of what I'm doing. I see that I sometimes have a bad attitude. I see that the default feminism was in me too. I didn't think I was a feminist, and I didn't think I was doing anything particularly immoral or wrong or bad, but I did have like the modern woman attitude to an extent. And that led me to pick people based on wrong factors. You have to look at, like, you know, your childhood stuff and all that. But all I'm trying to say is, I think that we have an issue where we tell women that they are perfect, they can do no wrong, you're a goddess, you're a queen, you slay queen, you're amazing. Every man should want you at your best and put up with you at your worst and all this kind of stuff. We don't say that to men. Women are the ones being told we're already perfect, we don't need to change.
Where do you, so I had a totally different upbringing, totally different than that. And my experience with a lot of women is they are incredibly self-critical, probably not in the right ways, you know. But I agree with you. I think this is true for men and women, is that you can't really do anything to change the person that you were with. The only thing you can do is change yourself. Right. So if something's not going right, whether it was one time or multiple times, I think the answer is always to look inside yourself and see what you can do to fix that. Right. But is this a common thing that because I don't know, I have a totally different upbringing where you guys are brought up and told you're wonderful, special, and all that stuff. Is that true?
Well, they'll say no, but generally, like when I watch the show and you ask women what went wrong with the previous relationships, they usually will say, oh, he was this and he was that and he did this wrong and he did that. He wasn't emotionally supportive. He wasn't this. It's like they'll go through 15 guys and every single time it was the guy. And it was never them. And I'm just like, and I think this is a symptom of us telling women, you're amazing, you're special, you're perfect the way you are. No wrong. You don't need to change anything. You're a goddess. And I'm just,
but who is saying this? Well, that's my thing. It's always, we're telling women this. They're saying
culture.
This. They're doing,
right. I would say that on the
Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You look like a Taylor Swift.
Are you a Swiftie?
No.
Are you a Swiftie?
I'm a Swiftie shirt right now. Oh, I do not listen to Taylor Swift.
So she can write multiple albums about all her breakups, and she's had like what, 27 ex-boyfriends or something.
A lot of boyfriends.
But it was, and she wrote a funny tongue-in-cheek song called "I'm the Problem, It's Me" because everybody was telling her, hey Taylor, maybe perhaps you could be the issue here if every single guy you've ever dated is a total piece of shit. And you'll hear women do this, right? And this is why I won't do it, even though the trolls are constantly like, what about your exes? What about your ex? I'm not going to give their business because they're private people. I'm a public person, they're not, and I have the respect for them to not tell you all their business.
Here's an example. If a man cheats, he fucked up. If a woman cheats, the man fucked up.
Wait, where do you
the woman cheated?
Hold on.
He wasn't meeting my
Where
need,
do you
blah,
get
blah,
that
blah, blah.
from?
This is like a common thing.
Because that's not what I see.
Women will constantly argue that when women cheat, the man wasn't meeting some sort of expectation. But when the man cheats, he's a dog, he's a piece of shit.
I've seen something. I've seen something totally different.
Is the best one, where if a man doesn't want you to keep the baby, he's an asshole. He has no right to make that decision.
But
and if a woman wants to keep it, it's her body. Go her.
But
that's a good point.
None of you are giving examples of where, except you gave Taylor Swift, which I'm not sure I totally agree with that.
Oh, every pop star, every singer,
all you guys are saying is they're saying this, they're saying that. The culture is saying this.
Okay, how about the narrative of abortions, where
the narrative? What is the narrative? I mean, you guys.
I'm about to explain it to you. Okay, so
oh shit.
Basically, the narrative with abortion on the left side, you do need a cat noise. The narrative with abortion on the left side is that if you are a woman, it is 100% your decision whether or not that baby lives. And if you want it to live, fine. But if you don't, it doesn't matter the man you're with. It doesn't matter what he thinks.
No uterus, no opinion.
If you give him an opinion, then you're brainwashed. And the child is not a child. Like, it's not a fetus. It's not living. You can decide what it doesn't. Science doesn't matter. Like, we all of a sudden want to get really scientific when we talk about abortion because we're like, oh, it's not. It's like a fetus. It's not the same thing. But then, I mean, there are other left arguments that science doesn't even matter. But that is the narrative. And so if
but you're still saying what the narrative is, not who specifically is pushing these narratives.
Let me help on the abortion thing here a little bit. Okay, let me ask you a question, right? Are you pro-choice?
I am.
Okay.
Shocker.
So what happens, let's say, you go to UCSB, people hooking up, people aren't always using protection. Let's say a guy knocks up his 20-year-old girlfriend and she wants to keep it. What do you say to the man who says, I'm not financially ready to be a father. I am not prepared to be a parent. What do you say to him?
Me personally, I would say I agree with you. You should encourage her to get rid of it.
Oh, see.
Okay, well, hold on. But let's say she's steadfast, good word, steadfast, and she wants to keep. She's not going to get the abortion. She wants to keep it. What do you tell to the man? What do you say to the man?
I mean, I know this is the answer you're looking for. I would say, well, you can't force her.
Well, but
because I mean, you can't really force. You can't violate someone else's bodily autonomy.
Wouldn't you say something along the lines of,
step up to the
you shoulda kept your legs closed. You shouldn't have had sex with her if you didn't want to do that, correct?
You should have thought about it before you came in her raw.
You might be asking the wrong person, because I would not say that, but I'm sure that there are people who would say that.
Here's the because I mean,
I do believe there are people who would say that.
Okay, so then would you be in favor of it's called legal paternal surrender? So that's basically
like if you say I think I actually would be in
favor.
So
like let's say the woman wants to keep it, the man doesn't. Would you be totally fine with the man? He could make some sort of opt-in decision where he's like, okay, I don't want to be financially responsible for the child. I don't want custody, and he could opt out.
If it's like legal and informed and like, you know, both sides know what they're agreeing to. Yeah, I would.
No, the other side, the woman doesn't have to agree to that.
Would you?
In any here's my position.
No, I mean like.
Hold on, let me explain it. In any state where a woman has a right to get an abortion, I think a man ought to have a corresponding right to what I like to call, some people call it a paper abortion, what I prefer to call a legal paternal surrender. So the man could say, well, if you have a right to an abortion, but you're opting to keep the child, I have a corresponding right to say, well, I don't want to be custodially responsible. I don't want to be financially responsible for the child.
I would agree with that.
You'd be in favor of that.
What I mean is the woman should know if he is doing that. Like
right, but what I'm saying...
he shouldn't be able to hide it. Like, you know what I mean?
Okay, so like make a disclosure.
$200.
Okay. That's reasonable.
Libs with their backwards/guerrilla logic can't agree on when life starts. Heartbeat, cognition, birth, etc. Shouldn't the logical answer be to default back to conception to eliminate potential murder?
We'll come back to that in just a second. Actually, I disagree with you, because a woman could opt to get an abortion without having to make any disclosures to the man. Ergo, I think a man in a state where this, and frankly, this will never pass anywhere, even in super progressive liberal states, where this would be at least some form of equality on the reproductive rights thing, at least for men. But frankly, liberals and progressives don't give a fuck about men, and frankly, neither do conservatives. At least they give, it's a very, liberals and progressives don't give a fuck about men if they're not even just anti-men. Conservatives, it's like it's a very token support for men. But this will never happen, so it's just kind of a fool's errand. But
Lol Paladins,
I don't think there should be a disclosure on the man's part.
Brixon, such a bad take, even worse for society, encouraging men to blow loads in 304s, and then it makes even more single mothers and taxpayers pay.
In any state where abortion is legal, it occurs to me that if we're like living in this egalitarian, equal, which we don't, but well, in terms of like, we have equality for women, not really for men though, especially on the reproductive front. There is no, men have absolutely zero reproductive rights, while
all
women
the
have.
obligation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so
then
you're saying just what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. Like if you have the right to unilateral abortion, you have the right to unilateral divorce, then men should have the same.
Dave Chappelle put it very eloquently. If you have the right to murder a child, I at least ought to have the right to abandon it.
Yeah, and actually, I think that logic would promote, like if that were a thing, it would promote, it would force people to have to take responsibility for sex, for what they're engaging in. It would force them to have conversations, because all of a sudden there's a lot more at stake, whereas right now there's just not a lot at stake.
Wait,
so it's interesting.
I have a question for you. Why do you think men should have to, in this hypothetical scenario where there's paper abortion, why should a man have to disclose to a woman that he's opting out?
I think that...
So she can reconsider the abortion?
Yeah, I would say to reconsider, because if, you think you're going to have two incomes to support a child, you're going to be getting child support, whatever, and then after the child is born, you don't receive that, I think that could really negatively impact the child's life. So I think a woman should know at least have a good idea about what is going to happen post-birth with her child.
I mean, what if it was, even in the scenario where it was like a casual encounter where she would have no reasonable expectation that this man intended, like, consent to sex. This is kind of consent to sex is not consent to fatherhood.
I think.
Or is it?
Or if it is, then consent to sex should also be consent to motherhood on the woman's side. Like, we have to be consistent.
Right, yeah.
That's the thing. I don't think your logic is very consistent, but I think that...
Wait,
I think he is consistent.
Hold on. From the male...
Are you pro-choice?
Hold on. From the male perspective,
okay.
If a male consents to sex, is that him consenting to fatherhood?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Well, that's how it is actually currently.
Well, I know, and I'm saying I agree that if a woman is going to go forth with a pregnancy that a man does not want to provide for, I mean, that's her choice to have the child. I agree that he should have the choice to not be supportive. I just think that I'm thinking about the child here after it's born. I think that you should know what you're getting into. And that's part of the reason I'm pro-choice, is because I don't think that children being born in certain situations are having very good lives.
So you think it's better for them to be dead?
Yes, I genuinely do.
So we should just kill all poor people because they're not having a good time.
They're already
right now.
alive. They're already alive.
Poor
But
people
so
are
is
the
a
only
baby.
ones having babies, by the way, right now.
And
The only so you'd be fine with just the human race dying out.
I mean, I'm gonna die
Yes,
someday.
because
We're all
then-
dying someday.
the problem
Always
is
say
that just
yes
goes
every
down
time.
such an
we're like
evil
8 for 8 now
evil
when I've
rabbit
asked
hole.
this question
Well, but
to a feminist,
would I
and
be
they're
like-
like, "Oh,
But
people
she's
have
not
to die
under
now."
she's not under any propaganda or brainwashing.
No,
not
no.
the death cult that's pushing.
She hasn't even heard
the
of
end
it.
of the human
she
race.
hasn't even heard of it.
I would not be fine with it ending in my lifetime because I personally try to avoid suffering.
But that's pretty selfish, though. Because yeah.
I think everyone alive is pretty selfish. I
Well,
think most people try
I
to
don't
avoid
know.
suffering and
Try
pain.
to-
Wait, last question on this, and then we'll move to a different topic. Do you think that men should pay child support before the child is even born?
Like pregnancy support?
I think they should pay before they even have sex with the woman.
So prostitution.
It's a down payment.
Yeah, I actually do. I think if it's a I think like in your situation where they can opt out, if they're like, I don't consent to being a father, no thank you, then no. But if they're going to be paying child support, then yeah, I think they should also support through the pregnancy.
None of these
Wait.
questions.
we used to have a thing called marriage.
Thank you.
I'm pro-marriage. I don't believe children should be born out of wedlock.
Wait, so one question
She says
though.
kill him.
Just kill him. That's
Yeah.
So
fine.
how early on, like, could it, for example, if the woman finds out, like, when do women typically find out? 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, I think it's like to 6 weeks. Yeah.
So should it be retroactive? Let's say, like, should the
No.
retroactive child support, pre-birth child support, be retroactive up until conception?
No, once you know.
Oh, once you know. Okay, so like at 4
I think that
weeks,
would be a
the man-
difficult legal
the man
thing
should
to
start,
work out.
The man should start paying.
I'm not paying all of it.
Should
but
start
like,
paying child support.
Yeah.
At what point in the
natal-
pregnancy? Like 4 weeks in? If she finds out, let's say she finds out at 4 weeks in, should the man be paying child support?
LOL Paladins donated $200. You just got to the crux of the matter. Women have been brainwashed to believe that humans that reproduce are bad and it's better if humans ceased to exist.
Yep.
Literal death count.
Yo, lol
It's called
paladins, thank you.
Malthusianism.
Wait,
I don't think
so,
that.
So
and
just
I
back
also
to my
don't
thing.
believe in overpopulation.
Wait, so just back to my thing. So the woman finds out 4 weeks in, she's pregnant. So is that at the point the man should pay child support?
Well, the point I think would be whatever going forward. Okay, I'm pregnant. Whatever prenatal care you need, you should. I think it should just be whatever point the pregnancy is known.
okay,
Otherwise,
but-
Wait.
I don't think it should be retroactive.
Hold on. So you are though in favor that the man should pay child support prior to birth?
I'm not against it. I'm not like campaigning for this.
Starting at 4 weeks or so?
Starting whenever, like if you don't
Okay, let's say
find
it's
out-
4 weeks.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So you are acknowledging that it is a child at 4 weeks.
Yeah, I went into the whole. You can watch my one-on-one debate with Andrew Wilson. Where
Okay, just wanted to.
Just kidding.
So
wanted
can
to
I
check.
can I just say
Yeah,
something?
go ahead.
This is
should.
exactly where we have an issue, okay? Because she's saying he should and he should be forced to and he should be made to, and it's like who's doing that? Okay, the government, right? So what we have done is we have created this nanny state where instead of people taking responsibility and accountability for their lives, because this is what women used to do. They used to screen men and say, are you going to take care of me and your children? And if you're not, I'm not going to have sex with you. And if I make the wrong decision, the responsibility of that decision falls upon my shoulders.
Right.
We have now abdicated that responsibility and said, I don't want to be responsible for anything. Somebody should take care of this. let's use the power of the state to enforce my will, because I didn't have the self-control, wherewithal, or insight to make that decision in the right time. And this is why we are in a problem.
And so do you think that...
Thank you.
That was good, man.
That's actually really interesting. I haven't thought of that. So if, for example, if we were to get rid of child support, do you think women would be a bit more responsible when it comes to who they have sex with?
Well, first of all, two things. If you got rid of child support and welfare, okay,
well,
because there's a nice net there, okay? All of a sudden, those legs would be closing up.
So are you guys pro or anti-natalist? I mean, if you would like to prevent these births, you want to take away safety nets for women who do get pregnant. It sounds like you're part of the death cult.
Nope. I did not say prevent the births. I said, first of all, something totally different will shift in the way that men behave. You will still have a proportion of men who are going to be trying to sleep with women, and they're going to be doing it, but it's not going to be the majority of men. Most men are going to be looking to get married because they want to have sex, which is the whole point, is to reproduce. They will.
You think people should be getting married just because they want to have sex?
It's a primary motivator.
What do you think marriage is about?
That's one of the big reasons
it's about
I'm married.
Love and partnership.
Sure. Well, that's all BS. No, of course it is.
Sad.
Of course it is. But here's the thing. People, we're so disconnected. Children are the blossom of the love that you have.
Right.
It's like a flower blooming out of something beautiful. That's all gone. All of that is washed away because it's not even your responsibility. It's the state's responsibility, and somebody should do it instead of you looking at your own accountability. If you want to be treated as an equal adult, as a man, then you must behave exactly the same way. You must share the same responsibilities, the same accountability, and not leave it to be somebody else's problem to clean up the mess that you didn't have the thought process to go through. And I'm not saying you can't get help. People need help all the time. We all make mistakes. It's not meant to beat you down because you've made a mistake. But we are now living in a society that encourages this and encourages absolutely no accountability on behalf of women and pretty soon on behalf of men.
It's actually provably true what she's saying, because in my book I point out that if you look from 1960 to now and you plot out on a graph out of wedlock births and the growth of the welfare state on a map or like on a graph, they go up exactly in tandem like this, like perfect lockstep with each other. So we basically just replaced marriage and paternity, fathers, with the state and welfare.
And you could see this the most.
I'm sorry. On that same graph, and
can you repeat that? The welfare state is rising with the birth rates?
With out of wedlock births.
With out of wedlock births.
Which, and you can see this in the black community. It's clear.
Okay. I have a couple comments about that.
Sure.
First of all, I know I don't know about your debates so much, but I know Andrew's debates, he relies a lot on like sociological studies are unreproducible. So, I mean, how can you say that if there's such a replication crisis,
that's
how
not
can you
a
say
sociological study, because you just look at the actual dollars of welfare money spent.
How did they collect that data? Could that be reproduced? Could the data collection?
What do you mean?
How they collected the data of like however they're measuring
out of
welfare
wedlock births,
and how are they measuring out of wedlock births? It's probably self-reported.
So I'll explain. Welfare you measure by literal federal welfare dollars spent. Okay, so that's just math,
which they track.
Okay. And then how are they accounting for confounding variables when they're comparing the two?
I'm not saying that they're comparing the two. I'm saying I compared the two.
How are you accounting for confounding variables?
You don't necessarily need to account for all. No, well, shut up and I'll explain. So if you look at out of wedlock births, that's something that when you go to have the baby, right? And if you don't put married to the dad on the birth certificate, it's an out of wedlock birth, or you're not, taking the same last name like they did back in the day. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's causative. I'm saying it's exactly correlative. And there are times
and the happiness would be antidepressants.
There are times where even if it's just a correlation, if they are in exact lockstep with each other, if it was like this, that might be one thing. But when they go like this together, exactly the same, it's highly indicative of the fact that you are making a causal claim.
Okay, but I bet if that stuff was about climate control, you'd be all over it.
Out of wedlock births by rewarding people with financial support from the state rather than from the father.
You are making a causal claim. That
I'm also using logic. I'm using logic.
But I mean,
and reason.
Sorry.
That thing, logic. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh my
That
God.
logic thing where you can see that obviously,
But you
as
could-
soon as we
here's-
start incentivizing
Do you believe in
the
global
state
warming?
to pay for out of wedlock
There's-
births, we
there's-
get
Wait, what?
more of them.
Whoa.
No, because I'm going to say this. She's going to say that she believes those statistics and those correlations, but these correlations are not. And that this is the
I didn't
annoying.
say that.
Okay, so do you believe in global warming?
Well,
show me
it's-
the
She
show me
works
the
for
data.
Shell.
Yeah, I actually, my father
Okay,
is
so
a
you don't believe-
ExxonMobil executive.
Exxon.
Okay, well now we're going to attack you because you don't believe it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Wait.